My name is Emma Sullivan and I never thought I'd own my father's mortgage. But life has a way of serving justice when you least expect it, especially during Christmas. I still remember that evening clearly, the massive Christmas tree in our family home's living room, decorated with ornaments that cost more than most people's monthly salary, the scent of expensive catering wafting through the air, and the sound of crystal glasses clinking as my stepmother, Diana, entertained her high society friends. The Sullivan family Christmas party was always an extravagant affair, designed to show off our family's supposed wealth and status. But this year was different. This year I had finally made something of myself, though nobody in that house knew it yet. "Emma, darling," Diana's voice cut through the party chatter, dripping with false sweetness. "The kitchen staff needs help with the dishes. Why don't you make yourself useful?" I stood there in my carefully chosen black dress, not designer like hers, but elegant nonetheless, and watched as my father averted his eyes, pretending to be deeply interested in his wine glass. He hadn't defended me in the 15 years since he married Diana. Why start now? "I'm a guest, Diana," I said quietly but firmly. "Just like everyone else." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh, sweetie. You're not like everyone else here. These are successful people, executives, entrepreneurs, people who matter." She gestured to the room full of her country club friends. "You work in what again? Finance? At some small firm nobody's heard of." If she only knew that small firm was Phoenix Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. If she only knew I wasn't just working there, I owned it. "The kitchen," she repeated, her smile never reaching her eyes. "That's where you belong. We wouldn't want to embarrass the family, would we?" My half-sister Victoria snickered from her place on the expensive leather couch. "Mom's right, Emma. Know your place." I looked around the room at my father's silence, at Diana's smug smile, at Victoria's contempt. These people had spent years making me feel small, less than unworthy. They had no idea that while they were busy flaunting their wealth at country clubs, I was building an empire. Diana had started dating my father when I was 12, right after my mother passed away. She swept in with her designer clothes and society connections, promising him a better life. What she really wanted was his money and status. Back then, the Sullivans were one of the most respected families in Boston. But Diana's expensive tastes and bad investments had slowly drained my father's resources. The mortgage on this house, this shrine to their pretentious lifestyle, had been refinanced 3 times. Their perfect facade was cracking, but their pride wouldn't let them admit it. I had watched for years as Diana systematically pushed me aside. When I got accepted to Harvard Business School, she convinced my father it would be a waste of money to help with tuition. "She'll probably drop out anyway," she had said. So I worked my way through school, took out loans, survived on ramen noodles while Victoria got a brand new car for her sweet 16. Now, standing in that living room full of fake laughs and real cruelty, something inside me snapped. "You're right, Diana," I said, my voice steady. "I do belong in the kitchen. At least there I'll be among honest people." I walked away from their superior smirks, my heels clicking on the marble floor. In the kitchen, the actual catering staff greeted me warmly. They had seen how Diana treated me, and unlike her friends in the living room, they had genuine kindness in their eyes. What Diana didn't know was that I had received an interesting call from her bank that morning. The Sullivan family mortgage was in trouble. 3 missed payments, multiple late fees, and a foreclosure notice was just around the corner. Their perfect Christmas might be their last one in this house. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus, my CFO. "Are the papers ready?" I asked quietly. "Yes, boss. The bank is ready to sell the mortgage. They know the Sullivans are a liability now. Should I proceed?" I looked through the kitchen door at my family in the living room, all playing their parts in this charade of success while their financial house of cards was collapsing. "Do it," I said. "Buy it all. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be poetic." Little did they know their perfect Christmas party was about to become the beginning of their biggest nightmare. And I, the girl they banished to the kitchen, was about to become their worst fear, their landlord. 2 weeks passed since that Christmas party. I hadn't heard from my family, which wasn't unusual. They only contacted me when they needed something or wanted to remind me of my supposed failures. But this silence was about to be shattered. I sat in my corner office on the 47th floor of the Phoenix Capitol building, reviewing acquisition reports when my assistant buzzed in. Miss Sullivan, your father and stepmother are here. They don't have an appointment, but they're quite insistent. I smiled, knowing exactly why they had come. The bank's call must have finally reached them. Send them in, Grace. Diana burst through the door first, her designer heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. My father followed, his face ashen. They stopped short when they saw me, taking in the massive office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Boston. Emma. Diana's voice cracked with disbelief. What is this? We were told to meet with the CEO of Phoenix Capital. You are, I replied calmly, standing up from behind my desk. Welcome to my office. The color drained from Diana's face. My father gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles turning white. This is impossible, he stammered. Why? I asked, my voice level. Because I'm just the help? Only good enough to serve drinks at your Christmas party? Diana's shock quickly morphed into anger. We're not here to discuss your little office job. The bank called about our mortgage. They said it's been sold to Phoenix Capital. That's correct. I picked up a folder from my desk and opened it. 3 missed payments in the last 6 months. Multiple late fees. Credit cards maxed out to pay for Victoria's engagement party last month. You're in quite a financial mess, aren't you? My father finally found his voice. How do you know all this? Because I bought your mortgage, I said simply. Every cent of it. Phoenix Capital now owns the deed to your house. Diana laughed, but there was hysteria edging into her voice. This is ridiculous. You couldn't possibly. I pressed a button on my desk phone. Grace, please bring in the portfolio reports for the Sullivan acquisition. While we waited, I walked to my office window looking out at the city below. You know, Diana, while you were busy making me feel worthless, I was building something. Every time you pushed me aside, excluded me, treated me like a servant, I worked harder. When you convinced Dad not to help with my Harvard tuition, I didn't give up. I graduated top of my class while working 3 jobs. Grace entered with the reports, placing them on my desk before quietly leaving. I continued, I started Phoenix Capital 8 years ago. We now manage over $12 billion in assets. That small firm nobody's heard of just acquired its 15th company last month. I turned back to face them. Diana had sunk into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade crumbling. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. So here's what's going to happen, I said, sitting back down at my desk. You have 2 options. Option 1. You start making your payments on time, every month, to me. No more refinancing, no more extensions. 1 late payment and I begin foreclosure proceedings. And option 2? My father asked quietly. You move out. I hear there are some lovely apartments for rent across town. Much more suited to your actual budget than that mansion you can't afford. Diana stood up suddenly, her eyes blazing. You can't do this to us. We're family. Family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was I family when you forced me to eat in the kitchen at Christmas? Was I family when you told everyone I was a failure? When you mocked my career, my choices, my life? I pulled out the Christmas party invitation from my desk drawer, the one that had arrived with a handwritten note from Diana suggesting I help the catering staff, instead of attending as a guest. You made your choice about family long ago, I said. I'm just the landlord now. Diana turned to my father, her voice shrill. Richard, do something. But my father just stood there, finally seeing me clearly for the first time in 15 years. Emma, I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected him. It was easier to look away. Well, you can't look away anymore. I pressed another button on my phone. Grace, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan out. And send them the updated mortgage terms. As they were led out of my office, Diana turned back, her face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. Victoria will never forgive you. I smiled calmly. Oh, about Victoria. Phoenix Capital just bought a controlling interest in her fiancé's company. Board meetings tomorrow. I don't think her engagement will survive the restructuring I have planned. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone in my office. I turned back to the window, watching as they emerged from the building below, looking small from this height. Diana was gesturing wildly, probably already spinning this story for her country club friends. That evening I drove past the family house, my house now technically. The Christmas lights were still up, twinkling mockingly in the winter darkness. My phone buzzed with texts from Victoria, all caps and exclamation points, threatening and begging in equal measure. I ignored them all and drove to the small cemetery across town. My mother's grave was dusted with fresh snow, the simple headstone a stark contrast to the elaborate Sullivan family monuments. "I did it, Mom," I whispered, placing a single rose on her grave. "I built something of my own." Over the next few months, I watched as the family's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Diana's friends slowly disappeared as the truth about their financial situations spread. Victoria's fiancé broke off their engagement after his company's restructuring left him with a much smaller trust fund. The country club membership was quietly cancelled. They kept the house barely. Every month, the mortgage payment arrived on time, usually accompanied by a bitter note from Diana. My father tried to reach out a few times, claiming he wanted to make amends, but I wasn't interested in his too-late attempts at fatherhood. The next Christmas, I didn't receive an invitation to the family party. Instead, I hosted my own celebration, in my penthouse apartment surrounded by the people who had actually been there for me over the years. My Harvard roommate who'd helped me study while I worked night shifts. My first employee at Phoenix Capital who had believed in my vision. The catering staff from last year's party, who now worked exclusively for my company's events. As we raised our glasses for a toast, my phone buzzed with an alert. Diana had made the mortgage payment, 3 days early this time. I smiled and turned back to my real family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's life. Sometimes it's about building your own, so beautiful and successful that they have to watch from the kitchen window looking in. I smiled and turned back to my real family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's life. Sometimes it's about building your own, so beautiful and successful that they have to watch from the kitchen window looking in. 6 months after that Christmas, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Victoria stood in my doorway, looking considerably less polished than usual. Her designer clothes were from last season, her handbag a convincing knockoff rather than the real thing. "Can we talk?" she asked, her usual arrogance absent from her voice. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat down, fidgeting with her purse strap. "Mom and Dad are getting divorced," she blurted out. "Dad finally had enough of her spending. He's moving out next month." I kept my face neutral. "I'm aware. The mortgage payment notifications will be adjusted accordingly." Victoria leaned forward. "That's actually why I'm here. I need a job. Nobody will hire me since the scandal with James's company, and Mom can't support me anymore." I studied my half-sister carefully. The girl who had tormented me through our teenage years, who had delighted in every small humiliation Diana inflicted on me, was now asking for my help. "Why should I?" I asked simply. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Because you're better than us. Better than what we did to you. I see that now." I thought about it for a long moment. "There's an entry-level position in our accounting department. You'll start at the bottom just like I did. No special treatment, no shortcuts. If you want to succeed here, you'll earn it." Victoria's eyes widened. "Really? You'd give me a chance?" "Everyone deserves one chance to change," I said. "What you do with it is up to you." A year later, I stood in my office watching the Christmas snow fall over Boston. Victoria had surprised everyone by proving to be a dedicated worker. She had moved into a modest apartment, started therapy, and was slowly building a life independent of Diana's influence. My father had relocated to a small condo across town. He sent me a letter every month, not asking for forgiveness but sharing stories about my mother that he'd never told before. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I was learning to understand him. Diana still lived in the house, rattling around those empty rooms alone. She had been forced to let most of the staff go, and rumor had it she now did her own dishes. Sometimes life's lessons come from the very things we look down upon. As for me, Phoenix Capital had expanded to 3 more cities. The small firm nobody had heard of was now featured in Forbes. My story of success despite family opposition had become an inspiration to others, proving that sometimes the people who push you down end up becoming the foundation you build your success upon. That Christmas, I received an invitation to the country club's annual gala, not as a guest but as the keynote speaker. I thought about Diana, who would be watching from a table in the back, no longer the queen of her social circle. I thought about my father trying to rebuild his life with a new understanding of what truly matters. I thought about Victoria, who would be attending as my employee rather than a privileged heiress. I opened my desk drawer and looked at the old photo I kept there, me at 12, standing with my mother in front of our modest old house, both of us smiling without pretense or pride. "We did it, Mom," I whispered. "We showed them all." My assistant buzzed in. "Miss Sullivan? The board members are ready for the year-end meeting." I stood up, straightening my suit. The meeting room would be full of people who had earned their place through merit, not marriage or manipulation. This was my world now, one built on real success, true relationships, and the quiet satisfaction of proving that the girl they sent to the kitchen was worthy of so much more. Sometimes revenge is not about the moment of triumph, but about the life you build afterward. Sometimes the best response to cruelty is not more cruelty, but becoming so successful that their attempts to diminish you become laughable. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who tried to break you end up having to watch as you surpass every limitation they tried to place upon you. As I walked into the boardroom, head held high, I couldn't help but smile. The mortgage payment from the Sullivan house had arrived that morning, on time as always. Some lessons, it seems, stick better when they're paid for in monthly installments.